I could identify the first word, which I deciphered immediately on the spot. That was Yud Hey Vav Hey, which is anglicized as Jehovah, or the private name of God.
There are moments in history when the past remains quiet, resting comfortably in textbooks and museums. And then there are moments when the past breaks its silence, when something buried long ago rises to challenge what millions have believed for generations. This story is not about opinion. It is not about modern debate or online arguments. It is about stone, metal, dust, and time. It is about something that lay hidden beneath the soil of Jerusalem for more than 2,500 years, untouched by human hands, undisturbed by war, and unaware of the religious divisions that would later shape the world. What makes this story remarkable is not only how old this discovery is, but when it chose to emerge. It surfaced in an age of religious tension, historical skepticism, and theological disagreement. And when it did, it quietly asked a question that still echoes today. What if the ancient record has not changed at all? Before we go any further, and before the true nature of this discovery is revealed, we invite you to subscribe to this channel. Stories like this, where archaeology, faith, and history intersect, are rare, and subscribing ensures you won't miss what lies ahead. To understand why this discovery matters so deeply, we must begin not with what was found, but with where it was found, and how close it came to being lost forever. Just outside the ancient walls of Jerusalem lies a valley known for centuries as the Valley of Hinnom. It is a place mentioned in Scripture, shaped by memory and meaning. Over time, its rocky slopes became burial grounds during the period of the First Temple, when Jerusalem stood as the heart of ancient Judah. These were not simple graves. Families carved burial chambers directly into limestone, carefully designed to hold generations of the dead. Once sealed, many of these tombs remained closed, their contents preserved by stone and silence. For hundreds of years, travelers passed through this area unaware that beneath their feet rested something extraordinary. Empires rose and fell. Languages disappeared. Religions spread across continents. Yet this valley kept its secret. In 1979, Israeli archaeologist Professor Gabriel Barkay led what was meant to be a routine educational excavation. His purpose was simple: to teach students how archaeology works. He did not expect to make history. Among the group was a curious 12-year-old boy. As children often do, he explored with energy and impatience. One small strike of his hammer hit a weak point in the rock. A thin limestone panel collapsed inward. Behind it was a burial repository that had been sealed since around 600 BC. What spilled out was a collection of objects frozen in time: pottery, bones, jewelry, and small metal items darkened by age. Among them were 2 tiny silver cylinders, crushed and fragile, no larger than fingernails. At first glance, they seemed insignificant. But Professor Barkay immediately sensed their importance. These were not decorative objects. They were something far older, something far more meaningful. The silver objects were transported to the Israel Museum, where conservators faced a nearly impossible task. The metal had rested underground for 2,600 years. It had become thin, brittle, and dangerously fragile. Unrolling them too quickly would destroy them forever. For 3 years, specialists worked slowly, using microscopes, chemical treatments, and precision tools. Each movement required patience. Each millimeter took hours. Then, at last, something astonishing appeared. Letters. Ancient Hebrew letters, carefully engraved into silver. For the first time since the days of the biblical kings, light touched words that had been sealed before the Babylonian invasion of Jerusalem. As scholars examined the inscriptions, the significance became clear. These were not random symbols. They were sacred words, familiar words. The text contained a blessing recorded in the Book of Numbers, words spoken by priests over the people of Israel. "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace." Numbers chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Even more striking was the presence of the divine name of God, engraved exactly as it appears in the Hebrew Scriptures. This discovery was older than the Dead Sea Scrolls by centuries, older than the Greek translations of the Bible, and older than Islam by more than 1,000 years. It was the earliest surviving biblical text ever discovered. For centuries, Islamic theology, particularly in its classical interpretations, has taught that earlier scriptures, including the Torah, were altered or corrupted over time. According to this view, essential elements of divine revelation were lost or changed long before the rise of Islam. Yet here was a physical artifact, sealed in a tomb before the exile to Babylon, preserving the exact wording found in the Torah used today. The structure of the blessing was unchanged. The covenant language was intact. The divine name was present and central. This discovery does not argue against faith. It does not attack belief. But it does present a serious historical challenge to the claim that the biblical text was fundamentally altered before the time of Islam. History, engraved in silver, tells a different story. Imagine the person who commissioned this inscription. He lived in a Jerusalem where the first temple still stood. He heard priests speak these words daily. He believed they carried protection, hope, and divine promise. An artisan carefully pressed each letter into silver, engraving faith into metal. The scroll was likely worn close to the body or buried as a sign of trust in God beyond death. That man could never have imagined that his private act of devotion would speak across millennia to a divided world. Scripture says, "The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever." Isaiah chapter 40, verse 8. Few discoveries have illustrated that truth so clearly. After Professor Barkay published his findings, scholars around the world acknowledged their importance. The Ketef Hinnom silver scrolls demonstrated that the core text of the Torah already existed in its recognized form during the First Temple period. They survived wars, destruction, exile, and empires. They lay silent through the rise of Christianity and the expansion of Islam. And when they finally emerged, they spoke not with argument, but with evidence. The scrolls do not accuse. They do not debate. They simply exist. And their existence invites the world to reconsider history. Buried, preserved, revealed. For 2,600 years, these words rested in darkness. They waited while civilizations argued over truth. They waited while doctrines rose and fell. And in our generation, they were revealed. Not as opinion, not as interpretation, but as history. What was engraved did not change. What was buried did not decay. And what was preserved now speaks. The past has spoken, quietly, clearly, and permanently.